When it comes to fast cars, Audi's performance division has kind of always given Americans the short end of the stick. I mean, sure, we've got vehicles like the impressive Audi RS3 and supercar like Audi R8. However, both of those vehicles carry six-figure price tags, which means that most Americans simply can't afford to put one of those in their driveway. Now, that all changed a couple years ago with the introduction of this. This is a 2019 Audi RS3 based off of the regular A3, but with the biggest difference being a fire-breathing 2.5-liter turbocharged 5-cylinder under the hood with 400 horsepower going to that signature quattro all-wheel drive system. So, is the littlest member of the Audi Sport line any good? That's what we're here to find out. Hey guys, so really quick, in case you're wondering how I got that orange, I guess more red RS3 super shiny in the video, I want to first give a shout out to the sponsor of this video and a product that I constantly use when cleaning the vehicles. This is something called Fortify Quick Coat by Shine Armor. And what it is essentially is a reformulated, beefed up spray detailer. It's basically almost ceramic coating in this little tiny bottle. And if you guys haven't heard of ceramic coating, it's the stuff that dealers typically charge you $1,000 on to coat the exterior vehicle to protect it. Now, this stuff is safe to use on metal, paint, plastic, and glass. And basically what Shine Armor says is you can take a vehicle that's dirty, for example, this Corolla that I have, and kind of spray on a microfiber cloth, spray the actual part where you'd like to clean. And you can see here all that salt debris that's covered this car is easily kind of wiped away. And then when you're done, you kind of flip over to a clean side or a dry side, and then you just wipe away the remaining haze. Now, Shine Armor says this product basically takes away the time because it allows you to clean, seal, and shine your vehicle so you don't necessarily have to use water or have to wash it the old-fashioned way. But if you guys are interested in purchasing this product, be sure to visit the link in the description below for a special discount. But thanks so much for watching, guys, and let's get back to the Audi RS3 video. So if you guys are familiar with Audi's lineup, you'll know that the A3 is the company's smallest and least expensive vehicle. And I want to actually point out one big thing, the elephant in the room. This RS3 version, even though it's the smallest and least expensive Audi Sport model, this one carries a sticker price of $68,000. So what do you get for that $68,000? I'm going to go over that throughout the rest of the video, but let's first talk about the design. Now, the A3, we've seen this body style here in America since 2015. It actually represents the second generation here, the fourth generation across the world. It got a pretty big refresh back in 2017 when Audi kind of changed the front end with these new headlights. LED headlights, thankfully, are standard on the RS3 and the rest of the A3 lineup. You'll have an LED running light, LED turn signals, and then LED low and high beams. No fog lights, as you can see. Instead, the RS models, you can distinguish them from the large quattro kind of inscripted onto the lower part of the grille. My tester has the black optics package, so it gets rid of all the silver and replaces it with black trim. It looks fantastic with this Catalunya red metallic paint. And actually, I want you guys to tell me if you think it's red or orange, because if you see it in person, all I see is orange, but it really looks red in photos. I'm not entirely sure how it's going to look on video, but in photos it looks red. Love the functional air intake scoops down here that help cool the brakes, that help cool the engine. It's just a really aggressive little car. So even though this is the smallest Audi, it doesn't necessarily mean it's the cheapest Audi to drive or look at. So from the side profile of the RS3, you can see this particular model is lowered a tad to give it a more aggressive stance, and the wheel options, 19-inch wheels are actually standard across the board on every version. There are 3 different flavors per se. This is actually what you get with the black optics package. It'll have a black finish inner spoke. They look fantastic, and the wheels themselves, if you guys go for the dynamic package, will be staggered. There'll be 255s in the front, 235s in the rear. Remember, this is a front drive biased car, so Audi puts the bigger wheels on the front. My particular tester has winter tires all around because it's the middle of December or the end of December here in the DC area, so they're 235s all around. And this is a small car. You can clearly see that from the package, and some of you are really going to like that because cars today are just getting so big. Its wheelbase 103.9 inches long and an overall length of 176 inches long. This is smaller than something like a Honda Civic or a Toyota Corolla or a Mazda 3 by like 6 inches. So this is a subcompact car. The A4, the bigger one, is actually a compact car. Think of this car as kind of like what the A4 used to be about 10, 15 years ago, which is why some of you will probably end up really liking this car. Now at the rear, again, it's very subtle. There's some slight design changes here to kind of distinguish it as an RS3 model. You have a nice RS3 badge. Over there you have this tasteful little black accented rear lip spoiler. You have full LED tail lights, and then of course my tester having the dynamic package includes the black finish sport exhaust. I'll let you guys hear what that 5-cylinder sounds like really quick. And honestly, the 5-cylinder is the whole reason why you are paying $68,000. I honestly can't even think of another car besides the Audi TT RS that offers a 5-cylinder. It just sounds fantastic. Now, one of the downsides of this being based on the A3 is the small trunk capacity. And unfortunately, it only is offered as a sedan, whereas you can get a hatchback on some of the other models. You're only looking at around 10 cubic feet of space back here. So as you can see, a lot of my camera equipment takes up a pretty big chunk of the trunk capacity. Kind of wish Audi offered the hatch here, but we don't get the hatch. The seats do fold down 60-40, and underneath here, don't expect to find a spare tire. You just have a fix-a-flat kit. So after you stop oogling over the exterior of the RS3, let's move on to the interior, since this is where you're going to be spending most of your time anyways. Here is the key fob for the RS3. You can see this is the older Audi key fob. It's very Volkswagen-ish with the flip out switchblade key. It is a smart intelligent access key, so you don't even have to use that little switchblade, but nevertheless, even though it's an old key, it feels good. It feels nice and heavy. You have your traditional lock, unlock, trunk release button, but there's no remote start on this key fob in general. But as you approach the RS3, you can see the door handle here. There's a little indentation area where you can just rest your finger. That will lock the doors. I also have it set to electrically folded in the mirror, so that's nice. It gives you that nice little chirp that Audis are known for. To unlock it, just touch the back of the door handle, and that will unlock the door for you because there's a sensor. Now, looking at the interior of the RS3, if you guys are familiar with the cabin of the A3, this will be pretty familiar for you. I mean, the RS3 does have a couple of upgrades. The seats, for instance, are definitely an upgrade package. They look fantastic. This has the optional red stitching that's kind of echoed throughout the cabin on the steering wheel, on the shifter, on the dash, on the seats. The seats themselves are 3-level heated seats, but don't expect to find cooled seats. I'm actually really surprised to find there's only a manual seat adjustment here. Now, it is a 4-way power lumbar, but it's an 8-way manual this is for the height. This is for this part of the height. The seat thigh extension sticks out, and then your recline is that little wheel there. Power seats are not available on the RS3 or the S3. It is available on the A3, so I'm a little confused as to why Audi doesn't include that on their top-of-the-line models. My guess is weight savings or maybe cost savings, but these seats, regardless, do look great. The rest of this door panel here, you can see there's a $600 extra for the carbon fiber. There's real aluminum trim. So the littlest Audi doesn't really have a cheap interior. It's just starting to look a little Spartan compared to some of their newer Audis. Now, stepping inside the cabin of the RS3, you're definitely going to notice that it sits lower than the standard A3 and even the S3. And it makes a really nice first impression. It's very minimalistic. So if you guys are thinking all German cars are super complicated, this car will definitely surprise you. Now, when you shut the door, it has that nice solid thunk when you shut the door. Really adds to that impression of quality. Even though the A3 platform has been out for 3 going on 4 years now, this is still a really impressive car. Now, when you want to start the vehicle up, put your foot on the brake, push the start-stop button, which is right here by the shifter, to fire up the engine. You can see the little 7-inch Audi MMI display will pop right up. This screen here only goes up and down whenever you turn the vehicle on and off. You can turn off the screen here by pushing this button, but the actual screen will stay there. I'm surprised it doesn't go away like it does in the old A6. Now, first of all, the engine doesn't let you rev it up too much when you're sitting still, but man, that engine just is so charismatic. And my tester with the dynamic package has the sport exhaust system, which sounds fantastic. We'll go more into that in the test drive. You saw the window, or the mirrors also opened up as soon as you started the vehicle up. Now, going over to the interior materials, this is the littlest Audi, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's the cheapest Audi in terms of, you know, the interior materials. And although some of the bigger Audis have full like stitching across the dash, this is a soft touch grading material. You've got authentic carbon fiber, real aluminum trim, lots of empty buttons here, which definitely doesn't make me happy considering the price of this car. Looking at the door panels, you can see it's also soft touch here, but it could be softer. It's a rubberized material that's very hard until you really have to squish it. The door grab handle here is aluminum, which is nice. Your window controls, they have a nice tactile, high quality feel. They're accented in metal. They're a one-touch express on all four. You can see your power mirror controls are over here. You can also electrically fold them in. They're also heated mirrors. This right here is nice and stitched. It's nice and padded right here where your elbows would rest. Down here, it's all hard touch plastic, but that's kind of expected. You have a little bit more storage over there. Over here, you can see your headlight controls are over there. Your dimmer switch controls are over there. And this steering wheel is unique to the RS3. It's definitely a nice wheel. Love the Alcantara. It reminds me a lot of what you find in the TTRS or even in an Audi R8. I like the flat bottom design. This Alcantara, however, will probably not wear well, so it does feel nice to hold. I probably would never get it in my actual car. You have these really nice steering wheel mounted paddles that are metal accenting. My tester has the $3,200 technology package that rolls in that virtual cockpit display. You guys have seen this before. This gauge right here is specific to the RS3. You can basically have this as your main gauge where it shows a power percentage, a torque percentage, your tach front and center, and then a digital speedo. Push this little view button right here. You can see the gauge display will change. It'll make the instrument for the tachometer and the speedo a little bit smaller. You can have that larger. Push this button here on the steering wheel and you can see, go to your radio sources, your phone sources, or you can also put the map display here. It's the full Google Earth display. This is a 12-inch display here that's part of the virtual cockpit. Love this. It's one of the best in the business, and Audi has been steadily improving this even on the newer generations, but this still looks really nice. If you don't want to have that big screen, you can still put the nav graphic onto the side over there and then have the tach front and center like any other performance car. A couple of features that's not available, no head-up display. I wasn't expecting that. And then over here you can see you've got dual zone automatic climate control and just 3-level heated seats, as I said. No cooled seats, which would have been nice, especially considering the price point. Down here you can see there's a little bit of storage for a few things and your cup holders, but your USB is over there, another 12 volt. Not really much in terms of storage spaces for your phone here. As you can see, I've got it basically shoved in right here, or you can probably put it over there, but there's no wireless charging pad, which would be nice. Down here is the command interface for the MMI controller. This is not a touchscreen here, so don't be trying to touch that, but you can see Apple CarPlay and Android Auto is actually standard. When you have your phone plugged in, you can see when you have the newest iOS 12. You'll have Waze and Google Maps, which is nice. Going over here to the Audi MMI interface, you guys have seen this before. It's just basically a shrunk down version in this car. The 7-inch display is definitely small. A lot of the newer Audis have, the big 12-inch monitors here, or they maybe 10-inch monitors, so which would be nice. This, to me, definitely looks old. If you'd like to, you can go to the navigation display, or the map display, I'm sorry, and it'll show you the Google Earth again. That's basically echoed from the instrument panel to here. This is all really nice. I said it looks old. I meant to say it's just small. So it's starting to look a little bit dated because it's too small, whereas a lot of brands are going to a much larger screen interface. Going over to your radio sources here, you can see Audi shows off their presets in this kind of fashion, and they've also fixed the scrolly wheel where if you turn it to the right, it'll also go down. Previously, before in other Audis, it was the opposite direction. It was counterclockwise to go down, which is just really strange for the US market at least. These vents here, I actually like them. They feel really high quality. You can close the vents by turning this to the right or turning it to the left whenever you want to open the vents. Putting the vehicle into reverse, you can see there is a backup camera here with front and rear parking sensors. It's got trajectory, it's got the distance markers, no 360 camera. You don't really need it for something this small. Just on that small screen, the backup camera resolution is starting to look a little bit grainy. I've seen a little bit better in some of the newer Audi products. This controls the 7-speed dual clutch transmission. It's the only transmission available. It's also got a sport mode if you want to kick it back into S. That'll put into a sport mode, and then there's a manual mode over here. Your drive mode selector is right there. If you push this button, you can see it'll cycle between your different drive modes. There's an individual mode which you can set, comfort, automatic, and then of course a dynamic mode. We'll go into the driving modes later on in the test drive, which is great. This basically here has a handwriting pad. It's got very tactile feeling buttons. You can access a few quick things over here. You have an electronic parking brake over there, and then you have a nice little armrest right here that will open up to reveal a little bit of storage, not much. Remember, this is a very small car. The glove compartment here, you can see, is a little bit on the smaller side, but it is damped, it is lined with felt. You can see it's nearly filled up with all the crap that this car comes with. The seats, I find them to be very comfortable and supportive, really high quality leather. Love the reddish orange stitching, which is great. Love the seat belts also that have an accent of red on the edges. This is part of that appearance upgrade package, that RS package that my tester has for $1,000. Some Alcantara on the door panels here. Above you, this panoramic sunroof is standard, although it's kind of like a mid-range panoramic sunroof. It's not completely the entire roof, but it's nice that, you know, Audi gives this to as standard. Some competitors like the Mercedes make it pay extra for that. Now, overall, the cabin of the RS3 is definitely snug fitting, but from somebody of my height, so if you're under 6 feet, you'll probably find this to be very cozy and just the right size. Just know that the tech is there. My tester, of course, is missing the full driver assistance package. It only has the Presense Basic at this point, so it's like just forward collision alert. The tech is here, but some of the newer, bigger Audis like the S5, for example, or S4, or RS5, they'll have slightly bigger, better screens with a little bit more in terms of features, but remember, this is the least expensive way you can get into an Audi Sport product. So if you thought the front seats of the RS3 were cramped, oh my, getting into the rear will really remind you that this is a tiny car. Now, shutting the door, it still sounds really solid, so that's definitely a good impression of quality. Now, this front seat has been pushed all the way back for somebody who's over 6 feet. As you can see, not much legroom back here. I pushed the front seat on this side up a little bit to give myself a little bit more space, but the floor, as you can see, is not flat at all. There are rear seat air vents here. There are 2 charging ports, 2 map pockets, which are nice, and then Audi gives you a nice little armrest here that comes down with some cup holders. Now, don't expect to find things like heated rear seats, no rear seat sunshades. Now, it is tight, but I have to say everything else in the segment is tight. So the back seats are usable for people who are under 6 feet, but if your friends are over 6 feet, don't expect to put them in the back seat here. So coming to the best part about the RS3, it's what's going on underneath the hood. Now, instead of just a 4-cylinder turbo like what you get in all the other lower models, Audi replaces the 4-cylinder with a 5-cylinder. That's right, a modern day 5-cylinder. Now, this is a pretty high-tech motor. It's a 2.5 liter 5-cylinder turbocharged engine with gasoline direct and port injection. Now, compared to the previous generation, Audi has replaced the old iron block with an aluminum block. So it's actually about 11 pounds lighter than the old model. So it kind of helps to take away some of the weight off of the front end, because remember, this is a transverse mounted engine. It's a front drive chassis. This is based off of Volkswagen's lovely MQB platform, so it's essentially a Golf underneath. Now, numbers are pretty impressive. 400 horsepower, which is actually up about 35 versus the old engine, and 354 pound-feet of torque. Now, keeping score with the competition, the Mercedes CLA 45, that makes like 375 horsepower. So this is the most powerful in this segment. It all goes out through, of course, Audi's patented Quattro all-wheel drive system, which Audi says it doesn't have a fixed torque ratio spread, but they did say that it tries to appropriate more power to the rear to give this car more of a rear drive feel, which we'll go into the test drive later on. Unfortunately, there's no manual transmission available. It all goes out through a lovely 7-speed dual clutch transmission. This is a DSG. With launch control, so of course this is going to be quicker versus something with a manual transmission. Most of the competition has an automatic, a dual clutch anyways. And fuel economy is actually not too hateful. It's rated at 19 in the city, 28 on the highway. Please remember to put premium gas in this thing. As this one sits, it weighs a tick over 3,100 pounds, so it's not terribly heavy. It's actually a really good size, but you guys have been really excited. Let's get it out on the road and see how this performance RS3 performs, shall we? So I have never actually had the chance to show you guys a review on an Audi RS product. Have reviewed an S5, an SQ5, an S7 before, but the RS models have always been really rare in the US, and the RS3, this is supposed to be the most affordable Audi. So without further ado, let's go ahead and take this one out for a spin and see if it lives up to the hype. And every time you start it up, the pops and the crackles from that exhaust, they're just so intoxicating. This is a 5-cylinder engine, and it constantly reminds you of that every time you start this bad boy up. Now, it's been a few years since I drove an A3 in general. I mean, this car first came out back in 2015. I showed you guys an A3 2.0T. Never actually had a chance to show you guys an S3. Which kind of sucks. I have driven them in the past, but never actually had one on for a longer term loan. So you can imagine how ecstatic I was when they dropped off this RS3. It's just such a cool car. Now, being the smallest Audi definitely means there's a couple of compromises. First is the ride quality. As you can see, it's a pretty firm ride. My tester has the fixed suspension. So with the fixed suspension, you do get a little bit of a harsher ride. I'd probably skip the fixed suspension option and stick with the adaptive dampers that come standard with this car. That basically means when you cycle between the different drive modes, like when you push the steering wheel over here, it cycles between comfort, automatic, individual. It'll actually affect the ride quality. Without it, I'm just gonna leave it in dynamic most of the time because it really only affects the steering feel, the transmission shift programming, and the throttle response. That's basically the only thing it's truly affected. But first, getting out into the road, the RS3 reminds you that it's still an Audi product, aside from the exhaust note that's a little bit louder, the firm ride. The steering in this car is surprisingly light and a little bit devoid of feel. It's a little too light. I expected this to be heavy. Even in dynamic setting, it's not really all that heavy, which is kind of disappointing. You want something like this to be heavy in terms of the steering. The visibility in here, though, is really good. This is a small car, and you're really going to feel that and see that. If you guys think vehicles like the new A4, the BMW 3 Series, Mercedes-Benz C-Class have all gotten too big, this will remind you of driving one of those, sports sedans from 10 years ago because of the small size. This is what is now classified as a subcompact SUV or car, as opposed to a compact car, which is kind of approaching mid-size territories. Now, the seats, and my tester, these are the optional design package, RS design package seats, which look fantastic. They're also extremely comfortable, even though they look fairly aggressive. I love the diamond quilt. I love the red contrasting stitching. They are really comfortable and supportive. They adjust like 8 ways or 10 ways, but only 2 ways are power adjustment, which is a little annoying, but you do have an adjustable thigh support. And the car just feels right. If you're under 6 feet tall, this car is going to feel really right. It's going to be easy to drive, and aside from the rougher ride quality, you're not really going to notice the fact that this is an RS performance model. It's just going to feel like a regular Audi A3. However, what makes this car so special is when you pull the transmission selector back one, it goes into S3 or S mode. This is putting the transmission in sport setting. You push the stability control off button once, and that puts it into a sport setting. And being an RS model with quattro all-wheel drive, it's got launch control, so let's go ahead and try that out. Left foot hard on the brake, floor the accelerator. Ooh! This little car will do 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds, which is just absolutely bonkers for something like this. And the engine just comes alive. It's such a charismatic, characteristic wail. It sounds like half of the V10 engine that you drive in like something like a Lamborghini Huracan or an Audi R8. It is essentially that engine with a turbocharger added to it and a slightly, obviously a smaller suspension. It's basically half that engine. Now, when you put the vehicle into its sport setting here, or the transmission to sport, the exhaust basically comes alive. You really notice the transmission. It's a 7-speed dual clutch transmission, not a torque converter, 8-speed auto like I've tested in the other Audi S products. This is a dual clutch, which is nice. The dual clutch reminds me of has some characteristics of the Porsche PDK. I mean, it's very lightning quick. It has these nice downshifts whenever you come to a stop or whenever you slow down. And they have these really nice burbles from the exhaust. It has a manual mode as well with the paddles. Oh, it sounds great. And listen to that engine. You don't even have to rev the engine that hard to hear that characteristic, exhaust note, that wail. It's such a great sounding motor. It's such a joy to drive something that's this visceral, this exciting, because Audis before, I mean, I've driven the Audi S5 and the SQ5. That V6 turbo in that car was good, but this is the motor that those cars beg to have. But you can hear it, it will downshift as you come to a stop. It's fantastic. And then when you floor it, all 20 pounds of boost just come on. And in terms of turbo lag, there is a little bit of turbo lag, and there's also a little bit of lag from the dual clutch. It's not, it feels like it's been dumbed down in relationship to the PDK you drive in Porsches, which kind of sucks, but again, the Volkswagen Group, they have to protect Porsche. But it feels like it has some of the characteristics, but at the same time, it's been dulled out a little bit. Now this is a front drive bias car. Remember, it's got a transverse engine. It's a Golf underneath here, but you would be hard pressed to even notice. A little bit of understeer there, but I felt a little bit of the tail step out as well. This is an interesting car because of the quattro all-wheel drive system trying to vector the torque around. It's trying to send more power to the rear to give this car more of a rear drive feel. It's surprisingly nimble and balanced. Remember, this car is a hot hatch in Europe. And in America, we don't offer the hatch version, obviously, but in terms of the sedan, it feels like a step above something like a Golf R, for example, Audi's own S3. So, I mean, it's a $12,000 bump, and really what you're getting is that engine. That engine is just charismatic. It's so fast. You can really keep up with a lot of supercars in your RS3. And even though the price is outrageous, the engine will constantly remind you that's exactly what you paid for when you purchased a vehicle like this. Now, in terms of the fuel economy, in case you guys are wondering, it's rated at 19 in the city, 28 on the highway. In my week's worth of testing, let's see here, I can go to Trip Computer. I've been averaging about 16.3 miles to the gallon, which is pretty, awful for something this small. But again, you could probably do a little better if you drive a little bit more conservatively. On the highway, I averaged about 22.5 miles to the gallon. And if I really was babying it, I put into its like comfort mode and I was driving like a granny. It did consistently do over 25, 26 miles to the gallon, which is good. But again, this is a 5-cylinder engine. It's not for fuel economy. It's for power. It's for performance. That's the whole reason why you bought something like this. It's just a much more charismatic engine. I will honestly never get tired of that. I'm trying to figure out what could make this car even better. I mean, a manual transmission would be great, although it wouldn't be as quick as the dual clutch. I mean, the launch control that the thing offers you is just unheard of. Oh my God, that sounds good. That is fantastic. We gotta try that launch control one more time just because we can. Ooh, oh my God. Jesus. I would never honestly get tired of that. That is fantastic. But that is the whole reason why the RS3 has definitely been worth the wait. I mean, it delivers the performance that you associate with a much bigger car. Even though the steering isn't as heavy as I'd like, you could theoretically take this car out to the track. The chassis can handle it. And it does have a little bit of that understeer, but then it has a little bit of oversteer once the torque vectoring diff kind of appropriates more power to the rear. This is a seriously fun car that will surprise a lot of you. If you guys think that this is just a Golf with a 5-cylinder turbo, it's much more than that. You'd be honestly shocked. Driving this and like a Golf back-to-back, the two cars feel so different. And I'm just really happy that Audi has decided to bring this here, and not even just for like 1 year. It's been here since 2017, so 2019 represents the third model year that the RS3 is here. And I hope that Audi continues to bring more of these amazing RS models to the US for years to come. So when Audi finally announced that they were bringing the RS3 to America, the forbidden fruit that we all yearned for was finally coming. And a lot of you have been really excited for a smaller Audi Sport lineup vehicle, something that was a lot more affordable than the RS3 or the R8. So after spending the week with the littlest of the performance Audi division, how does this one stack up? Well, I'm happy to report that that 5-cylinder engine is the most charismatic part of this vehicle. It just sounds incredible. It has 400 horsepower. It is the quickest out of all of the hot hatches. The Mercedes CLA it doesn't even stand a chance to how fast this thing is. It's got actually surprisingly good handling. It's got a really beautiful looking exterior, especially in this Catalunya red metallic paint. And really where the RS3 falls short is in the fact that it kind of fails a little bit as a car. It's a little too small on the inside. It's missing some luxury features that I expect at this price point. And a lot of you, if you're over 6 feet tall, simply just will think that it's a little too small for daily use, and you'll probably want to pony up the extra dough for something like an S5 Sportback instead. Now, with all that said, if you guys are looking to purchase one of these limited production Audi RS3s, what's it going to cost? Well, I mentioned earlier that this one is $68,000, which is literally the most expensive version you can get. This car actually starts at $56,000 for a 2019 base model. Now, this is actually relatively well equipped. My tester has a nearly $5,000 Dynamic Plus package that gives you those carbon ceramic front brakes and the carbon fiber engine cover. I would skip that part entirely because it also includes the fixed suspension that does make the ride quality a little bit harsher. This one also has like a technology package. It's got the Dynamic Plus pack, or the Dynamic package, which for $1,500 gives you the sport exhaust and the upgraded wheels. I would pick that all day long. My tester's also missing a technology package for $1,500 that gives you all the driver assistance stuff. I mean, you could spec this car up to be just under $60,000, which I think is a little bit more reasonable, but just keep in mind, this is still a lot of money for something that is very small and slightly impractical to use for daily usage because of the small trunk and rear seat capacity. But if that's not important to you, if you guys are looking for something that's a little bit more practical to use than something like, you know, a Mercedes SLC or an Audi TT RS, the Audi RS3 should definitely be placed at the very top of your list. But I hope you guys have enjoyed my full overview on this 2019 Audi RS3. If you're also looking to see the latest cars I'm testing, make sure you follow me on Instagram at redline_reviews, like us on Facebook, and as always guys, please keep subscribing to the Redline Reviews YouTube channel for all the latest reviews. Thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you all in the next video.